going on between Bonetti and Iaconelli. Iaconelli wants to unlap himself. Now, in a way, Bonetti could let him go because they're not battling against each other for position. What he wants, I suppose, is that car between him and Peter Cox. It's a bit of a cushion. It may well be that Peter has to work incredibly hard to find a way past that car, and it will just release Bonetti to build the advantage once again. GT racing attracts all sorts of people and animals to watch, doesn't it? So you've got the Monza crowd cheering on the Ferraris at the moment, the best place of which is in second. Is it going to be a Ferrari win? At the moment it's looking good for Porsche. How's Audi getting on? Sixth is the surviving Audi, Felipe Albuquerque. There's number 10, which is Jerome Policon, who's lost a lap of late on the pit stops, and he is now down in 9th place. Felipe Albuquerque behind him, 6th at the moment. And the leader is in, so the Porsche comes in with less than an hour to go. So this car, which was good on fuel in the first part of the race, the first stint, has been likewise. So they can do this seemingly on the 2 stops. And now Paolo Roberti will take over the car. Paolo Roberti, former European Touring Car Championship racer in Alfa Romeos. We've seen him driving the Celine in the FIA GT Championship. He's been a class runner-up in the LMGT2 class in the Le Mans 24 Hours in the past. Very much a class act, and given the way this car is going, I still reckon it could well be the winner come the end of the next hour, because it's just looked so strong so far. Tempting fate in saying this, I know. Meantime, the fight for third becomes the fight for the lead, because also into the pit lane has come Louis Machiels, and so number 18 Porsche inherits the lead then, and behind it Peter Cox and the Lamborghini getting closer and closer all the time. This gap continues to come down between the pair of them. They've still got Carlos Iaconelli between them. There then is the car that was leading when it came in, having the tyres changed. Strapped in, ready to go is Paolo Roberti. And at the other end of the pit lane is the number 2 Ferrari that has come in, with Louis Machiels then now set to hand over to Paul van Splunteren. That car is on the pit apron. Team busily working away to get the Vita 4-1 Ferrari back into the race. They want to try and get it out ahead if they can of the Porsche. So you've got a real battle for position going on in the pit lane. From where we are, we can just see the Ferrari that is still having its pit stop completed, and it doesn't have to go very far down the pit lane, whereas it's the full length of the pit lane for the Porsche, which is moving, of course, now. So who's going to come out ahead? This is the battle to be the best place of the double stoppers, really, at the moment. And the Porsche is making its way down the pit road and is ahead still of the Ferrari. There you can see the Porsche making its way to the pit out, and the Paul van Splunteren Ferrari will slot back in behind. So they came in that order, they go out in that order. They keep the track position, in other words, keep the places. The Porsche ahead of the Ferrari. Paolo Roberti ahead of Paul van Splunteren now. But what this means is that the leader was the Porsche, but Peter Cox is about to get the lead on the inside coming into the Parabolica, or is he not quite? Alessandro Bonetti just able to close the door, but he runs wide, and Peter Cox and the Lamborghini is level as they come out of the Parabolica, and through goes Cox into the lead of the race. The Lamborghini inherits the lead. Bonetti bails for the pit lane, and Peter Cox carries on, but I think he's going to give the car back, isn't he, to Mark Hayek, from what Mark was saying to Haley earlier on in the race. And I don't think Mark's going to match Peter's pace, so Peter needs to keep going for as long as he can and try and build up as big a gap over the opposition as is possible. Diving down towards the first chicane, the Lamborghini leads the way once again, and Peter Cox only knows one way to drive, and that's flat out, and he's storming on now, trying to pull away from the rest of them. So Peter Cox leads. In second place, though, now should be number 9, Paolo Roberti. But Peter Cox has got more back markers to worry about. Carlos Iaconelli there, further up the road, the former GP2 Formula Renault 3.5 driver. Had a spell in the International Formula Master Championship for a time, did Carlos. He's raced in assorted Formula 3 championships as well, the South American, the Spanish, and Carlos Iaconelli will hand over to Matteo Bobbi, the 2003 FIA GT champion, for the last stint of the race. The number 38 Ferrari then, having lost 2 laps early on in the race. There, number 18, Alessandro Bonetti. He hands the car over to Stefano Borgi, another of the gentleman racers within the Pro-Am Cup. I don't think necessarily that Borgi's going to be able to match the pace of Gianluca De Lorenzi, for example, or Alessandro Bonetti, who looked pretty good in that middle stint. Strapped in. Now they can do the tyre change. There's Peter Cox, still pressing on. Now that car did 33 laps in its first stint with Mark Hayek at the wheel. It's been driven quicker in this, so more fuel used, but they might be able to get another 2 out of it to keep it on the same strategy, and that will also mean that they can go to the end if it pits. Now, within these last 55 minutes, they're going to be good on the 2 stops to go to the end of the race, aren't they? Tyre change almost finished then. Stefano Borgi in number 18, ready to go, and as the number 24 Lamborghini comes up towards the line. Peter Cox completes now 65 laps and he's staying out there. Down towards the first chicane. Carlos Iaconelli now up to 9th for Scuderia Vittoria. This new team put together by Piers Maserati, Danny Buxton and Tom Ferrier. All good racers themselves, now turning their attentions to running a team, and Iaconelli being given the blue flag because of course he's getting in the way a little bit of Peter Cox. Stefano Borgi leaves the pit lane, and number 2 I think is back in, is it not? The Ferrari that Paul van Splinteren had taken back into the race has pitted once again. Yeah, it's 3rd pit stop, so what's happened there I can't tell you, but the car is back into the pit lane. We didn't see anything out on the track that would give a problem. The Nissan coming down towards the first chicane has got a problem as well. Look, and he's about to lose its GT4 lead. Mansell throw on the inside, but it was crabwise a little bit, the Nissan, wasn't it, coming down towards the chicane? And a big moment there as Chris Ward tries to put the power down. It looks like something was broken, and that car is limping back to the pit lane. So big disappointment. Is it a puncture? Looks like it could be, couldn't it? Right rear corner is low, so a punctured tyre conceivably. Now there's the Ferrari I was talking about, back in the pit lane. So all of a sudden, both cars for Vita 4-1 have got problems. It did rejoin after its pit stop, but only did a couple of laps and came back in again. So Paul van Splinteren in the pit lane, and there's no urgency around that, suggesting the day is done. And it is a flat tyre, yeah, on the Nissan. I was suggesting it may have been when they come out of the chicane. It's true, you can see it now. So Chris Ward, who had that happen when he came over the line, has got to do a whole lap, and that's a disaster. He doesn't fight the car through the chicane, he likes to skip the chicane and try and get back to the pits as quickly as he can. Fabrizio Ferrari handing over to Alberto Viglioni in the Ginetta G50 in the GT4 category, but he's now going to be well and truly shaken up because of the drama for the Nissan. Driver change and refuelling done. Now the tyre change on the Ginetta G50 to get it back into the race. So Chris Ward was, before that puncture hit, leading GT4. Now it's Leo and Greg Mansell and Eduardo Piscopo as the leaders in the Lotus, and second is going to be the Maserati in the hands of Devis Schwegli. Baz Linder's still hustling on, isn't he, in the Ford? Whoops, very close to the GT4 Aston there, in the hands, number 88 now, of Raffaele Sangiolo, another experienced GT racer, but almost getting in the way there. Last seen in the Maserati Trofeo last year. Sangiolo gets out of the way eventually. Felipe Albuquerque also still charging on in the background, looking the Audi. And that car currently is in 3rd place. How's it doing in terms of lap time against the others around it? Well, held up in traffic last time, so it's harder to gauge, but I still reckon this car is going to be there or thereabouts come the end. It's certainly not yet out of the hunt as a possible winner. But behind is Fred Makovici, who is absolutely flying in the Hexis AMR Aston number 4. Down they come towards the Parabolica. They lap the Nissan that's still limping towards the pit lane. And having a look on the inside, Makovici. Again, Baz Linder's here, the spoiler in the pack in a sense. Over the timing line they come through now at the end of lap 66. Peter Cox still leading. Paolo Roberti is in 2nd place. 3rd now is Baz Linders. Yes, he's worked his way onto the lead lap once more. 4th is Felipe Albuquerque, but he's a pit stop ahead, and he's going to have a look on the inside as he comes down towards the chicane. So Felipe Albuquerque goes through. I say Baz Linders is the spoiler in the pack because in real terms he's got to make another pit stop and put Maxime Martin into that car. So he's on the lead lap, he's in that battle, but he's going to have to make another stop and therefore fall away once again. And it's Fred Makovici in 5th place. So Makovici catching up to the Audi all the time. This is the fight going on for 3rd, 4th and 5th places, and Makovici makes a move on the inside of Baz Linders. Is he going to be able to find a way by? Not there, he's not. The Ford hanging onto its place for the moment, but remember, it had a puncture. Baz Linders had to pit, and therefore it's out of sequence against the cars around it, and it's got to make another pit stop, whereas the teams want to get away with 2 if they can do so. The car that leads, of course, at the moment, Peter Cox's Lamborghini, has only pitted once, and it's now gone further in the 2nd stint than it did in the 1st, but in a way it needs to, because Peter has to stay out for as long as possible to get the most out of the race result in that car. Makovici is almost pushing Baz Linders as they come down towards the Variante Ascari. Now he lines up on the inside to try and make the pass. He should be able to do it, and he does so. So Makovici now up into 4th place. Race order: Peter Cox ahead of Paolo Roberti, who in real terms is the race leader because he's the best of the 2 stoppers, ahead of Felipe Albuquerque in the Audi, and then Fred Makovici. And the Aston Martin, as you might have expected in Fred's hands, is really becoming a factor. The Blancpain team are ready. Writer Engineering Mechanics ready for Peter Cox, who's at the wheel of 24. 50 minutes to go. Well, that car is going to give up its lead, but at the moment, the number 9 Porsche of Paolo Roberti is getting away, it seems, from the rest of them. We'll look at the lap times this time through and see whether or not the gap's going to go up or come down. As Bas Linders pits then, he's had his fun in that battle, and now he's got to come in and give the car over to Maxime Martin. Peter Cox last time lapped in the 53s. There he is into the Parabolica, but behind him, Paolo Roberti is lapping in the 151s, and Albuquerque last time was a tenth quicker. So he is setting about bringing the gap down to the Porsche, and Peter Cox gives up the race lead. In he comes to serve the second pit stop. That's going to be okay. Now the car shouldn't need to stop again on fuel. They can put Mark Haig into that car. He'll bring it home. Maxime Martin's getting on board the number 44 GT there. Down the pit road comes Peter Cox. Mark Hayek is ready to take over, and the Lamborghini mechanics sprint into action then. The driver change and the refueling can be done first of all, then they'll put a new set of tyres on. So what this now means is that we are going to have into the lead number 9 Paolo Roberti, and into second place the Audi of Felipe Albuquerque, and third Fred Makovici, and it's going to be something like 7.5 seconds covering those three. So the battle well and truly joined now. It's going to be a great finish of this race. The fastest lap of the race, by the way, has been set by Matt Griffin, whose car, remember, was in the gravel earlier on when Jack Gerber was driving it. Well, Matt Griffin has got it by the scruff of the neck and has brought it back up now into 15th place, the AF Corsa Ferrari, but he's on the fastest lap of the race. It had been held by Stefan Ortelli, that honour. Not anymore. The Irish driver, Matt Griffin, third in the British GT Championship, has now laid claim to being the quickest man around Monza. He was quickest, in fact, on Friday in the free practice and pre-qualifying sessions. But there is the race leader, Paolo Roberti, turning his way for the 68th time through the Parabolica. He's going to get the lead back, of course, now, with the Lamborghini having pitted. But the significant thing to note is the gap between him and the car that's chasing after him, number 32, which is the Audi coming now onto the pit straight in the background, because that is Felipe Albuquerque, who is 0.7 of a second quicker that time through. And Fred Makovici is also lapping quicker than the race leader. Part of that's going to be down to traffic, but it does look, with 48 minutes of the race to go, that we're going to get the leading three concertinaing up, and there are still drivers to watch for behind them as well. More battles to rage on, because lower down the order we've got the number 46 car, which is also in a big hurry now, with Mirko Venturi at the wheel, the man that started on pole position. This is the Black Bull Swiss Racing Ferrari, up into 9th place and still charging, so there's a lot more to pan out of this race yet. Gap between the top two, 3.2 seconds. 47.5 minutes remain here at Monza, the opening round of the Blancpain Endurance Series. Down the pit lane, into the race comes the Lamborghini, Mark Hayek at the wheel of it. That car, of course, has fallen down the order as a result of the pit stop, but it joins once more now. So Peter Cox brought the car in the lead. At the end of this next lap, we'll have a true indication of where it is within the classification. In GT4, number 70, the Lotus of Leo and Greg Mansell and Eduardo Piscopo leads, with the Maserati of Dervish Fagli doing the chasing. Those two cars are on the same lap, but Fagli's got to make another pit stop yet. So in real terms, I think the Mansell Piscopo Lotus is going to be the stronger placed. There's the top three making their way down the straight. Roberti ahead of the Audi in the hands of Albuquerque, and then Fred Makovici in the background. .2 seconds last time was the advantage that Roberti had over Albuquerque in the sectors. He has been quicker in sector 1 but slower in sector 2. Over the line comes the Porsche then, the Auto Orlando Sport Porsche leading the way. Behind it the Audi in the hands of Felipe Albuquerque, and the gap between the pair 3.3 seconds, and then Fred Makovici lapping quicker than the two ahead of him. 5.3 seconds cover the top three cars with 46 minutes to go. It's building up to be a great finish, isn't it, here at Monza this? There's Fred Makovici, the French driver, threading his way out of the chicane, hustling on in pursuit of the Audi. And traffic is always going to be a problem, and there's a rather smoky car there for the leaders to negotiate. Is that the Ginetta? I think it is, isn't it, that had its wheel bearing problems earlier on in the day in qualifying, and it's looking very smoky now, which is a real shame, because that car had done a great job leading its class at one point. Now, though, it looks like it's in problems, and Paolo Roberti turning his way up now towards the first of the Lesmo corners. Now, does the Felipe Albuquerque Audi need to make another pit stop is a question, just thinking back to when the car made this pit stop. I reckon it can go to the end, that car, so it's going to be straight fight, isn't it, one hopes, between what we now have as Porsche, Audi and the Aston Martin with Fred Makovici at the wheel. But it's one for Haley perhaps to go and just double check this, whether or not Audi believe they can go to the end. Still no safety car, extraordinary, because most people were predicting at least 1 or 2 interventions of the safety car, given the disparity between some of the pro drivers and some of the gentleman racers, but they have all, so far, driven in a pretty exemplary way. Race leaders with more back markers to worry about, and if anything now it's Makovici catching Albuquerque rather than the Audi catching the leading Porsche, isn't it? Down towards the Parabolica they come. I just wonder whether Felipe Albuquerque may be driving within himself a little bit here, not yet getting the most out of that car, just for fear of using too much fuel too soon. So it may be that they're settling into a rhythm just for a little while longer yet, if they can avoid a fuel stop. So good. Over the line comes Paolo Roberti. That Porsche is going to be good to the end. It's been very, very good on the fuel all the way through the race. And locking up ahead of him is Ludovic Sunier, who goes straight on. The Aston Martin gets out of the way. So quite the proved method of letting the leader by, but it's effective. Actually, Makovici has dropped a long way back there going into the chicane, hasn't he? Because Albuquerque's managed to pull clear. So Roberti leads, traffic having not quite self-destructed, but certainly jumped out of the road to let the car through. Albuquerque in second place. Well, the gap had come down anyway. It was 3.2 seconds, then it came down to 2.4. So Felipe Albuquerque is still rising to the challenge here, but I think a lot of that was time lost in traffic last time through for Paolo Roberti. And then Fred Makovici, who was the quicker of the 3 last time, has been dealt a bad hand on the first half of this lap because he's stuck there with the slower cars around him, but he hasn't yet been able to wriggle away by. Matt Griffin's about to be lapped, number 50. Now the Audi in second place, Albuquerque having taken over from Bert Longchamp. Let's hear from Bert now in the pit lane with Haley.
Bert, will he be coming back in, or will he be able to stay out till the end?
I think we have to come back in. I think we lost the race in the beginning, at the end of Stefan's stint with the puncture, because we lost there about 30 seconds. But anyway, I think we are on a good pace, and it's the start of the season, so when we could end 4-3 or we don't know, I think it's not so bad. But anyway, I think we were in a shape to win the race, but you have to have a little bit of luck also.
Good to be racing the Endurance Series in the R8?
Yes, I drive here in the Blancpain. I drive in Belgium with the R8, so I drive a lot with the car, but it's very important because the level of driving here in this series is very high, so the more kilometers you have, the better it is.
Thank you, Bert.
So Bert Longchamp suggesting the car does have to make another stop for a bit more fuel before the end. So are we therefore looking at the gap in real terms between Roberti and Makovici, first to third? The Ginetta still smoking, but still going. Is he going to pick this time? I think eventually the scrutineers will want that car in, won't they, for a good look at it. So it's going to complete another lap, but it's getting smokier and smokier. Over the line it goes. The car now being driven by Alberto Viglioni, and it is down in 24th place overall. 32 started, 33 were here, but we lost the Lamborghini of Albert Montuno Taxis after an accident at the end of qualifying earlier on in the day. So second place is the Audi, driven by Felipe Albuquerque. Punctured tyre when Stefano Telli was leading early on, certainly cost them time. Paolo Roberti leading the way in the Porsche, 2.8 seconds clear last time through. The Italian team, Auto Orlando Sport, it would be a good win if it can't be a Ferrari winning at Monza. Perhaps an Italian team will be second best. But what about Fred Makovici and the Aston Martin? So third at the moment, and certainly not out of contention, that's for sure. What can you do about the Audi further up the road? The gap was 11/10 of a second starting this 72nd lap. Just to confirm the order, Porsche there you can see leading, Audi second, third is the Aston Martin of Fred Makovici. In fourth place is the first of the Ferraris, the number 10, Sofrev Autosport Promotion car of Patrice Gouillard, Julien Juste and now Jérôme Policon. That's lapping quicker than the top 3, but Jérôme Policon's still a bit fearful about the fuel consumption in that car. In fifth place now is the number 24 Peter Cox Mark Hayek Lamborghini, and in sixth place is the very rapid Gianluca De Lorenzi, Alessandro Bonetti, Stefano Borgi Porsche, the team manager of which is still being summoned to the race director. In seventh place on the lead lap again now is the Ford GT, Maxime Martin at the wheel. In eighth place is the pole-sitting Ferrari of the Black Bull Swiss Racing Team, and now it's a fire, not just smoke, it's a fire underneath the Ginetta by the look. There's flame though as it goes onto the back straight. Mirko Venturi in eighth place ahead of the Portuguese driven Lamborghini of De Vega, Da Costa and the third driver in that car being Ricardo Bravo, and to round out the top 10 in car number 8 is Eddie Renard in his Aston Martin. That car's going to have to come in this time surely, because it's well ablaze underneath. The Ginetta comes out of the Parabolica. Hopefully the message will have got through. It'll come down the pit lane. The marshals are going to be there with the fire extinguishers. But this, of course, is not what you want driving down the pit lane, given the amount of fuel there for the refuelling stops. I think this, again, might well be a team given a bit of a ticking off. Well, actually, it's going to be stopped at the top end of the pit lane, not released to the team. The marshals are there to put out the blaze. And now you understand the importance of drivers unbuckling belts if you've got fuel around in the pit lane, so you can bail out of the car in a hurry. Somewhere in all of that smoke is a Ginetta G50. Driver's okay, hops out of it. Alberto Viglione walks away from the rather charred remains at the back of the car. Hopefully that's been salvageable, but whatever it was that went wrong in the engine has caused a big fire, and the car is out of the race as the leader locks up, scrabbling into the Variante Ascari, keen to get through the traffic as quickly as possible. Just has to sort out the Aston Martin there that was started by Freddie Bath, now being driven by Rolf Maritz, who, going back to the late 1970s, raced Porsches in the latter days of Group 5 World Endurance Racing. He's got out of the way of Albuquerque. He's got out of the way now as well of Fred Makovici, who goes through on the inside, diving into the Parabolica. So the top 3 still covered by 3.8 seconds. Albuquerque still, we fear, to make another pit stop, and the race with just under 40 minutes to go as they're taking off his crash helmet. Alberto Viglione, the Italian driver, out of the race, out of the car. Big disappointment, because the team worked really hard after its dramas in qualifying to get the car on the grid. It was looking good for the first 2 hours 20 minutes or so. Then the problems strike. End of the day. So we've talked about the different classes within the race, and up front the top 3 all within the Pro class, the GT3 Pro Cup. Paolo Roberti's Porsche leading the way. There he is, with Felipe Albuquerque second overall and second in the GT3 Pro Cup, and then Fred Makovici third outright, again within the GT3 Pro Cup. Porsche ahead of Audi, ahead of Aston Martin. That's the way it looks at the moment. 38 minutes of the race still to run here at Monza, this opening round of the Blancpain Endurance Series, this great mix of pro drivers, Pro-Am drivers, and the gentleman drivers within the Citation Cup. And there's another of the cars that runs in the Pro-Am category. Indeed, the leader of that class is the Blancpain Lamborghini of Peter Cox and Mark Hayek. The Pro-Am leading car comes through. Porsche second in that class, in fact, because it's the 18 Gianluca De Lorenzi, Alessandro Bonetti, Stefano Borgi Porsche that's doing the chasing. But the Pro-Am leading Lamborghini looking good here in the hands of Mark Hayek and Peter Cox. That's, of course, been an overall leader of the race earlier on. Let's go back to the pit lane. Henri Moser's Aston Martin third. Let's hear from him with Haley.
Henry, the question is, can the Aston make it to the end of the stint?
Of course we're going to make it. Just the question is, we've got to come in to put some more fuel in the car, because our big V12 here is very thirsty. So it's just a little problem for us. It's a question of 2 laps, but we're going to have to come in to make a splash and dash before the end of the race.
And it's quite a competitive grid this year, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. The championship is really nice, really tough, and really racing 3-hour races is really what I enjoy the most.
Thank you, Henry.
And a spin there, the 36 Porsche facing the wrong way. Sergio Negroni, Luigi Emiliana, Marco Casera's car having a rotation going into the first chicane. Yellow flags there briefly. And that rather delayed the race leader, and a change for the lead, because Felipe Albuquerque goes ahead of Paolo Roberti. The Audi moves ahead of the Porsche, and Fred Makovici's right up there as well. They all got caught out with yellow flags and back markers, and a very opportunistic Albuquerque takes over the lead of the race with 36 minutes to go. But that car still perhaps to have to make another stop for a bit more fuel, like the Aston Martin, whereas the Porsche has looked so good on the fuel. That probably is going to be okay to go out to the end. So Roberti may not be too frustrated here about having lost the lead. Is he going to fight back? Is he going to have to defend second place from Makovici? 3 different manufacturers slugging it out for the lead. Said earlier on in the race, that's the sort of thing that Stefan Rattel always wants. There's many different manufacturers to be competitive as possible, and it's worked out again here. There's the balance of performance within GT3 racing, and certainly these cars very well balanced indeed. Great racing. We've had race long here at Monza, this opening round of the Blancpain Endurance Series, and we're about to have more drama in the Pro-Am category, because the car that's second is going to be given a drive-through penalty for having the wrong number of mechanics working on the car during a tyre change. So that is, in other words, going to increase the lead for Mark Hayek and Peter Cox within the Pro-Am class at the end of the next few laps, once number 18 serves the drive-through penalty. Here are the leaders then. 35 minutes to go. Albuquerque, Audi, Roberti, Porsche, Makovici, Aston Martin. Through the Parabolica they come, heading now up towards the line. Felipe Albuquerque just starting to edge away a little bit from the Porsche, but if he does that, it's going to use yet more fuel for him, and he can ill afford to burn all of that. But there are a lot of teams now up and down the pit lane starting to hope for the appearance of a safety car, but there's no suggestion of it yet. Those cars that have had dramas have been able to be snatched out of the way or rejoin the race, so it's been quiet on the safety car front. Leaders out of the chicane, currently on lap 76 in this 3-hour Blancpain Endurance Series opener at Monza. And Felipe Albuquerque holding sway for the moment. In second spot there, Paolo Roberti. And Fred Makovici in third place, a race winner within the FIA GT1 World Championship. And the Aston Martin starting to get a little bit closer again, perhaps for the Porsche. Henri Moser talking about the fact that that car's going to have to come in for a little bit more fuel, but only by a couple of laps. So that really is a team that will be saved by a safety car period, wouldn't it? Into the first of the two Lesmo curves comes this lead battle, and Felipe Albuquerque, having taken the car back into the lead of the race, it led, of course, when Stefano Ortelli was driving it earlier on, is trying to just edge away from the Porsche of Paolo Roberti. Behind them in fourth place, still chasing, is Jerome Policon. Fifth is Mark Hayek, leading the Pro-Am Cup. And then in sixth place, but yet to make its drive-through, is Stefano Borgi in the Porsche GT4, being led still by the Lotus. Great to have Lotus back in international sports car racing. And you've got Eduardo Piscopo with the Mansell brothers, Greg and Leo, leading the class there. And the other category, the Citation Cup, currently being headed by the number 31, Georges Caban, Greg Gilbert, Lamborghini. Leader pulling away into the Parabolica. The gap between second and third, though, is continuing to come down here as Fred Makovici hustles on in the Aston Martin. The car looking a bit twitchy through the Parabolica. Earlier on we talked about Pierre Bryce Mayner's stint in the car, and he was showing his blisters to Haley, saying how hard it had been. And there's Stefano Borgi right across the white line. And the race director said in the briefing yesterday, if you do that, I consider the white line to be a wall. And if you drive through a wall, I will stop your car to make sure it's not damaged. So having just served a drive-through, I think Stefano Borgi is going to find himself in even more hot water now. Big slide for Paolo Roberti coming out of the chicane. You see the way he's fallen back from the race leader. There is the Audi, but now Paolo Roberti is having to defend that second place, because right there behind him is Fred Makovici, and Fred's starting to think about where he can make his move now. The inside for the second chicane is where he's going to challenge, I think, but is he level? No, can't do it in time. Paolo Roberti hangs on to second place, but while he's defending like this, it's going to enable Felipe Albuquerque to pull clear. Flash of the lights there from the Portuguese driver, warn the traffic of his progress. So Albuquerque the leader, Roberti second, Makovici third. They've just negotiated Leo Mansell at the wheel of number 70. Paolo Roberti goes through on the inside. Makovici pounces as well, sorts out the slower GT4 Lotus. Meantime, heading towards us there, you can see Felipe Albuquerque. There is a small gap now between him and the opposition, and the team manager of that Porsche coming towards us is again being summoned to the race director because of the way that the car broke the white line. Into second goes Makovici into the Variante Ascari. He's been working on that for a few laps and he's now paid dividends. So Fred Makovici goes up into second place. Down to third is Paolo Roberti. But the two leading cars, from what we're being told by the team, still to have to come in for a little bit more fuel, just a splash of fuel before the end of the race. The car, therefore, in third, may still be in the box seat for a race win, mightn't it? Paolo Roberti in the Porsche, down in third spot now, having been leading a few laps ago. Also coming in there, number 6. This is the Ricardo Bravo, Lorenzo De Vega, Duarte Felix da Costa Lamborghini from 9th place. Meantime, Maxime Martin there, 6th, the 4 GT coming into the first of the chicanes. That's another team, I think, that can well look back on this as a race that got away. Had it not been for that punctured tyre, it could be a rather different story for them, just like it could have been for Vita 4-1, with the two Ferraris looking competitive and then suddenly dropping out with assorted problems. There's number 10, which is now Jerome Policon in 4th place. Now he is on the lead lap, but Ferrari 458, fuel thirsty. When Jerome was talking to Haley early on in the race, he was saying that they wouldn't just be able to do 2 stops, they'd have to go with a third. So across the line he comes. But do they go for the third stop, or, as he was also suggesting, we just run it till it runs dry? That's the other option. Chance you're on, that's going to be a late race safety car. We're almost into the final half hour of the race now. Car 10 then turns its way out of the chicane. Jérôme Policon, another of the very experienced drivers that's been attracted to the Blancpain Endurance Series this year. Policon, the former Clio V6 champion. There's the Citation Cup leader, 31, Georges Cabin and Greg Gilvert's Lamborghini. Former Peugeot Spider Cup winner Gregory Gilvert, having done a good stint in that car. In fact, he's been in it for a long, long time now, and it's in 12th place overall, the Lamborghini, as it comes over the line. So, shows that a well-drilled gentleman drivers team within the Citation Cup can still score a good overall result. The car's just kept out of trouble. No real dramas race long. Wiper knocked on again as it comes out of the chicane, but that car looking very solid indeed at the moment. 12th place it runs. It may well gain a place, of course, now that we've just seen the similar Lamborghini of the Portuguese drivers, Bravo, De Vega and Da Costa, come down the pit lane. Depends whether that's going to be a routine stop or a problem for the orange Lamborghini we saw a moment ago. Up now towards the second chicane comes Gregory Gilvert. The car that he's chasing is 38, which is the Scuderia Vittoria Ferrari, currently being driven by Carlos Iacconelli, but there are 2 laps between them, so chase he may, catch I rather doubt he will. Stefano Borgi there, getting a bit crossed up towards the chicane, ran a bit deep into it, getting in the way of Fred Macavicchi. Man that's in second spot, the car that was started by Henri Moser. And there, the Hexis AMR team getting ready with the fuel churn. So that car, as we've been hearing from the team, is due to come in. Stefano Borgi, who is going to have another drive-through penalty for cutting the white line at the pit exit. He's now being lapped, is he, by Fred Macavicchi? But he should have kept out of the way, I think, there, but claimed his line for the corner. Fred Macavicchi may well have been expecting that, because he didn't force the issue, but big flash of the lights now to say to Stefano Borgi, come on, get out of the way. Borgi is not for moving, is he? Which is all rather irrelevant, given that he's going to lose places anyway when he serves his drive-through penalty. So the Italian driver, not being terribly cooperative, is holding up Macavicchi. It's letting not only Albuquerque get away, it's letting Paolo Roberti catch back up once again. 28 minutes of the race to go. Now, how far can that Audi go before it needs a bit more fuel, or can it do another 28 minutes? Might depend on its pace a little bit. At the moment, Felipe Albuquerque is lapping in the 151s. Still, Stefano Borgi is in the way of Fred Macavicchi. He's not really endearing himself to people here, is he? He's got a second drive-through coming up. He's getting in the way of quicker cars. Welcome to the Blancpain Endurance Series, Stefano. Right, behind him is Macavicchi, still flashing the lights to try and encourage the Italian out of the way, who's not for slowing as they come down towards the Parabolica. And Paolo Roberti right there on the back of the Aston Martin as they turn through the long right-hander now. Does the Porsche peel off and serve the drive-through penalty? Let's see. Out of the Parabolica, up over the line. No, not yet. So, another lap completed. Hopefully the message will get through about a drive-through, but also he's still in the way of the second and third place cars. As 22 comes down the pit lane, Philippe Scherer, Amandine Foulard and Lionel Como within the Citation Cup. Right, Borgi's got the message at last. Macavicchi goes through on the inside. Now Paolo Roberti has got to do the same amount of work, potentially, to find a way past the lapped Porsche that is in 7th place, 1 lap adrift of the race leaders. He's got a lap down last time through with the Audi going ahead. So Fred Macavicchi then now in 2nd place, but the gap has really gone out while he was being held up there from being almost up on the tail of the Audi. 3.8 seconds is now the gap between the top 2 cars. 27 minutes remain here at Monza. It's opening round of the Blancpain Endurance Series. Is it going to be a Porsche win? Can it be an Aston Martin or an Audi win? It all depends on how fuel efficient they can be. Are we going to get a late race safety car to throw a lifeline to any of the teams? A drive-through penalty is also going to be applied to Eddie Renard in the Aston Martin for starting the engine while the car was on the fast lane of the pits. So that's another car that's being given a penalty. Race director being kept pretty busy in these last few minutes of the race. Fred Macavicchi down towards the Variante Ascari. Look behind him, Paolo Roberti is still stuck behind the similar car of Stefano Borgi. Those 2 Porsches, remember, were in that order and battling in the first stint of the race when we had Gianluca Roda on the tail of Gianluca De Lorenzi. Well, now they're still battling, but in a way they shouldn't be, because one's on a different lap. Stefano Borgi on the outside down to the Parabolica. He's going to have to cede the place surely this time. Well, no, he sticks his nose in front again, but on the longer line eventually gives way. Oh, and then decides to back off and cut to the pit in and serve the drive-through penalty. So I'm afraid that wasn't really terribly cooperative driving by Stefano Borgi. He comes down the pit road and having cut the white line, which he was told not to do at the driver's briefing, it's down to him really that the car will lose more places as a result of this drive-through. Now, whether or not he's been told or reminded that's why he got the drive-through, I don't know, but what we now don't want him to do is do it again and get another drive-through. So let's just keep an eye to this as he comes down the pit lane. Back into the race, by the way, the second of the Audis, Marcel Fassler at the wheel of 33, and the car is in 20th place overall now. Many laps behind, like 9 laps adrift, but it is in the race. Stefano Borgi is back in the race. Don't cut the white line. Perfect this time. So he has got the message. Stefano Borgi rejoins, but a long way back as a result of the 2 drive-throughs that the car has now suffered. So at 7th it was, he's going to drop a few places as a consequence of this. The Maserati GT4 there. Now, 2nd and 3rd, getting themselves back together again now that they've got the pesky Porsche out of the way. Paolo Roberti closing on Fred Makovici once again. We are into the last 25 minutes of the race, and it's Felipe Albuquerque leading. Well, it was 3.8 seconds, it's now 5 seconds that he's been able to build up. So part of that is because Makovici has been stuck in traffic, but it's quite a handy advantage to have for the Audi. And the Hexis AMR team, ready as we've seen in the past with the fuel churns. How much longer can Makovici go? It's a roll of the dice here in a sense. They keep going and pray for a safety car, or do they swallow hard, pit, lose time, and then try and fight back? The number 2 Ferrari also, by the way, which Paul van Splunteren took over, pitted, well, has rejoined, admittedly down in 16th place, and Roberti goes very wide through the Parabolica, but I think Makovici's coming in, isn't he, on the tighter line? Yep, he is. The Aston's in this time. So from 2nd place, Fred Makovici will take on a drop of fuel, but it's not just a case of put the fuel in and go, because the driver has to unbuckle his belts, one of the regulations. So Fred Makovici stops, team goes to work, they don't have to change tyres, they can keep it on that set of boots. Of course, it would waste time by changing the tyres anyway, so they don't want to do that and lose any more time than is absolutely necessary. Jérôme Policon here could inherit 3rd place. He's another driver that may have to make another fuel stop, but the car that was started by Julien Juste did a great opening stint. Now with the team boss Jérôme Policon behind the wheel of it, coming out of the Parabolica, he's going to gain the place, I reckon, because the fuel is still going in. Quite a lot of fuel going into the Aston Martin, so it looks like it was a rather urgent stop for Makovici. He couldn't have gone much further. He's lost 3rd place. So that means it's Albuquerque's Audi now leading by 6.9 seconds from the Porsche in the hands of Paolo Roberti. Now up into 3rd spot comes number 10 Jérôme Policon. They are going to change tyres. Well, that surprises me. So having elected to bring the car in for fuel, at least one new tyre has gone on the car, and the Aston Martin blasts into the race now. So Makovici has done a lot of good work to get the car into contention. He's going to have to do a lot more good work with 22 3/4 minutes of the race to go. It's Mark Hayek's Lamborghini, which is in 5th place. Really good job this between Mark and Peter Cox. They've worked well together as a combination for a number of seasons now, and they might well gain 4th here because the Lamborghini is up to speed as it comes over the line. There's the Hexis Aston Martin rejoining, and it's going to lose the place, so Mark Hayek goes ahead. Fred Makovici down towards the first chicane. In other words, the Lamborghini is 4th. No, it's not, because he misses his braking point completely, goes up the escape road. Oh dear, 0 to 0 in one easy move. Mark Hayek had just managed to stay ahead of the Aston Martin. Makes a mess of the chicane, goes up the escape road, back into the race. So he was 4th, he's now back down into 5th spot. Albuquerque leads Roberti, leads Policon, leads Makovici. Mark Hayek is currently 5th. Maxime Martin's Ford GT is 6th. It's the last 22 minutes of the race now, as there is Fred Makovici, getting himself back up to speed here. At the end of the lap, we'll have a look and see how much time he's lost as a consequence of not just the fuel, but also the belts needing to be rebuckled and a tyre being changed. And of course the time lost driving into and out of the pit lane. That's another of the reasons to try to avoid a splash and dash if you can, because you lose not just the refuelling time, but also the extra bits that go with it. Makovici on his own then now. The gap between the top 2, 7.2 seconds. Makovici is going to have lost the best part of a lap, I reckon, here. The only way he's going to get that back is if cars ahead have to also to make refuelling stops. We reckon that the number 10 Ferrari is due another fuel stop, from the way that Jérôme Policon was talking earlier on. So is the Audi going to stop? Yes, I reckon they are, because the mechanics look like they're getting ready. There they are. They've got the tyres and they've got the fuel churns ready as well. So Felipe Albuquerque leads the way, and this is going to give the advantage back the way of Porsche, isn't it? Paolo Roberti in the Auto Orlando Sport Porsche in 2nd place, falling away a bit from the Audi, but perhaps thinking, well, that's fine, I'm looking after my fuel, I can go to the end here. They've stopped pretty much on the hour mark each time, and Stefan Ortelli there watching on in the pit garage. He led early on. His car is leading once again by half the length of that straight, but that's not enough to preserve the lead if they've got to come in. 20 minutes to go. Well, Hexis eventually brought the Aston Martin in, refueled it, put new tyres on. Felipe Albuquerque stays out for another lap. 20 more minutes of the race remaining. Does the Audi have to stop? Bert Longcham's suggestion was yes, it would. Felipe Albuquerque's right foot would suggest that it can keep going for the moment at least. The team manager of the Hexis Aston Martin number 4, Fred Macavicchi's car, is now also being summoned to the race director. So has there been an infringement there? If a penalty beckons for Fred Macavicchi, that's another car effectively taken out of contention for honours. So we'll keep an eye to this. The team manager to the race director, Fred Macavicchi's Aston Martin currently runs 4th. There's the leader, Felipe Albuquerque, into the last 20 minutes of the race. He leads by 7.6 seconds, but potentially with another fuel stop to make. Paolo Roberti in second spot in the Porsche, trying to catch up to the Audi, but he may also be relying on the fact that the team is looking ready to refuel it out of the second chicane. The Variante della Roggia comes Paolo Roberti. In the sectors, he is quicker in sector 1, only by a tenth of a second, just under. So we can do in the middle sector on this lap as well, and whether there's a pattern starting to emerge now as he catches up onto the back of Albuquerque potentially. Third is Jérôme Policon's Ferrari, and then in 4th place Fred Macavicchi's Aston Martin. In 5th place Mark Hayek and Peter Cox Lamborghini, and 6th the Ford GT, and they're ready. Looks like the Belgian Audi Club team, so the race leading car is not long in the lead, I fear. The pit stop beckons, so Paolo Roberti is going to inherit the advantage. Is there anybody behind him that can come back into the picture in the remaining, what have we got, 18 and 3/4 minutes and counting of this race? Fascinating it has been. So many teams looking like they have a chance, then suffering a problem and falling away again. It's been a race of changing fortunes all the way. Felipe Albuquerque heading out of the Parabolica. Is he going to pit this time? Is he going to get another lap out of it? He's pitting, isn't he? He comes through into the pit lane. The leader is in with 18 and a half minutes to go. So Paolo Roberti is going to get the lead back in the Porsche. And you see the importance of looking after fuel now, because that Porsche, having been 10th in the first stint, is going to get back into the lead. And barring a disaster, I reckon it's going to be on for a race win now. So the Audi stops, and is there going to be a driver change as well? Felipe Albuquerque to hop out of the car. There's not going to be a driver change. It's just a driver there to help with the belts, isn't it? Yes, so driver with crash helmet on and overalls on, because of course that's another regulation within the refuelling, that you've got to be suited and booted. And so Bert Longchamp, I think it was, that came out just to look after doing up the belts, rather than making the driver, Felipe Albuquerque, staying in the car, do it himself. He would do it, but there was also a tyre change going on, so it's going to be a longer pit stop. It wasn't just for fuel. It seemed as though there was going to be some attention to the rubber as well. The car went up, and I don't know whether they changed, because certainly it's been dropped down quickly, and back into the race has now gone 32. So, that car delayed as a result of another fuel stop. There is Fred Macavicchi coming out of the chicane. Race order is going to be the number 9 Porsche back in the lead of the race. And for second and third, we're going to end up with a fight, aren't we, here, between the Audi, there, rejoining now, and behind, Fred Macavicchi and the Aston Martin, who's about to come onto the pit straight, I reckon. Into the pits has come Jérôme Policon's Ferrari. Remember, he too was talking about the need to refuel, and it's going to be a new front left on that car as well. That's what they did, I think, on the Audi. They certainly did just that front corner on Fred Macavicchi's Aston Martin. So if that's a tyre that's taking excess wear, which it will on a clockwise circuit like this, then they're going to change that. Time is lost, but it's better than a tyre going down late in the race. So Paolo Roberti leads with just over 16 and a half minutes of the race to go. There, leaving the pit lane is Jérôme Policon, but I fear he's going to go a lap down here, because here's the Porsche coming out of the Parabolica, up over the line. So number 9, the Auto Orlando Sport Porsche, back into the lead of the race. The car started, remember, by Gianluca Roda. Great middle stint by Raffaele Giammaria. And now Paolo Roberti does put a lap on Jérôme Policon as he comes over the line, past the pits, down towards the first chicane. Porsche leads at Monza. The Italian team with the 911 GT3R up front there. Policon is a lap down, turning his way into the first chicane now. He's also got with him the Marco Casera Porsche that had a spin earlier on. So into the last 16 minutes of the race, there the Audi, which of course has made its last pit stop for a bit more fuel. That's going to keep second place. Third is the Hexis AMR Aston in the hands of Fred Makovici. And because that was a slower stop, you can see the gap has really widened between those two. Down to the Parabolica comes now Felipe Albuquerque with just over 15.5 minutes of the race to go. They need a safety car now, not so much for fuel, but to get them back into contention, don't they, against the Porsche. That's the only way they're going to catch it, unless the Porsche has a problem. But so far it's looked pretty much bulletproof. Over the line then goes the second-placed Audi. It's over a minute now.